Let's dive into something that's, well, a little unsettling. We're going to explore how a good person, someone you probably know, someone you might even trust, can quietly transform into someone dangerous.
See, it's never a sudden snap. It's not one big dramatic moment that pushes them over the edge. It's a process, a really quiet evolution that honestly almost always goes completely unnoticed by everyone around them.
And that's exactly what makes it so hard to spot. It happens bit by bit, day by day. These tiny little shifts that, on their own, seem like nothing. But, they start to add up. And this is the absolute key. This change doesn't come with shouting matches or big arguments. Nope, it's built in silence, hiding behind this calm face, which is exactly what makes it so unnerving. So, who are we even talking about here? Let's get to know the main character in this story. It's an archetype we all recognize, the helper. You know this person. They are the rock, the anchor for literally everyone they know. I mean, you definitely know this person, right? They're the one you call when you have a crisis, because they'll listen, they won't judge, and they'll help without a second thought. They just seem so unshakable, always keeping it together when everyone else is falling apart. Their whole identity is basically built on being good, on being reliable. But here's the catch. Here is the central contradiction, the big paradox at the very heart of the helper. While they are so busy taking care of everyone else's problems, their own pain, it just gets ignored, pushed way down and hidden from view. Okay, so what you're looking at here is fascinating. It's like two totally different realities are happening at the same time. On the outside, you see someone who's calm, who's always there to listen, who just fixes things. But the hidden reality? Well, the truth is, they are actively ignoring their own pain, suffering in total silence, and completely draining themselves to keep up that image. So, what is actually going on inside their head? Let's take a look at how all this pressure builds up. Because this silent suffering, it's just not sustainable. It creates this internal force that eventually has to go somewhere. Seriously, just try to put yourself in their shoes for a second. Imagine you feel trapped. Maybe it's a job, a relationship, whatever. But your inner voice just keeps saying, be patient, just do the right thing. You tell yourself to just hang in there, to do what's expected of you, day after day after day. And this leads us to a really important idea. Suppressed emotion. See, when you ignore how you actually feel, that feeling doesn't just disappear into thin air. It gets stored. Think of it like pouring more and more water into a sealed bottle. Eventually, something's got to give. And this breaks it down perfectly. First, you suppress. You just ignore it. Then you store it until all that internal pressure just becomes too much to handle. And finally, you get to a point of fracture. And it's not some loud explosion. It's a quiet, internal break. For years, maybe their whole life, the helper has been guided by this one single question. It's their moral compass. Every single choice they make is filtered through this lens of duty, of responsibility, of what everyone else thinks is the right thing to do. And then, the fracture point. The guiding question suddenly changes. It's a subtle shift, but it's absolutely monumental. The focus flips from what everyone else needs to their own internal reality. This right here is the exact moment the transformation quietly begins. So once that question changes, their entire moral code starts to rewrite itself. But it's not chaos. It's not random. It happens through this chillingly logical process. Yeah, this is so crucial. People almost never see themselves as the villain of their own story. Instead, they start to justify their new way of thinking. They build a case for themselves, one small, logical-sounding step at a time. I mean, just look at this progression. It starts with something we can all understand, right? A feeling of self-worth. I deserve better. Then it gets a little harder, a little more bitter. You know what? I've tolerated it enough. And then, finally, it twists into this dangerous entitlement. I have the right to fix this, and I'm going to do it my way. The moral lines don't just break, they move. And this is the final, honestly terrifying result of that whole justification process. In their own mind, their actions aren't selfish. They're not destructive. No, they are necessary. They see themselves as the only logical solution to a problem they've been forced to put up with for way, way too long. Okay, so now we get to the fallout. When all this internal pressure and all this self-justification finally turns into action in the real world, what does that actually look like? The things they do next, they are not born from some sudden fit of rage. They're not chaotic or impulsive at all. They are the end result of a long, quiet, careful process of thought. The actions are cold, they are calculated, and they're carried out with this terrifying sense of purpose. To everyone on the outside, it is a complete shock, but to the person on the inside, it was always inevitable.
So, after all this, what's the big lesson here? What's the takeaway? We're so often taught that anger is the emotion to be afraid of. But it turns out that's not quite right.
That's the real danger. It isn't the feeling of anger itself. It's the anger that never gets a voice, that never gets processed. When you bury what you feel, it doesn't just go away. It hardens. It transforms from a raw emotion into a cold, calculated plan.
And let's just end on that thought, because it really makes you rethink where the true danger lies. It's not in the person who's yelling and expressing themselves. It's in the quiet one, the one whose internal pressure has been building completely unnoticed for far too long.